Hello and welcome back to Society Case Files. I'm sorry about the sound quality today. I didn't break out the whole setup for this. I only wanted to take a quick minute to talk about some projects that I'm currently working on that are super exciting, and I had to chat about them. So if you like this kind of content and you want to see more, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Otherwise, I'm going to dive right in. Basically, I work on all kinds of stuff. I do novels, I'm working on a role-playing game, I'm working on music. I've got a lot of irons in the fire. But right now I'm working on something that I consider to be one of the most exciting things I've done in a long time. Several years ago, back in 2011, the Deadly Nightshade Botanical Society released a CD called The Carnival of the Poisoned Rose. And back then, I was okay. I felt reasonably confident at the time, but the reality was that I just didn't have the chops to do what I wanted to do with that project. So I finally sat down and wrote a screenplay that is basically a audio drama of the story from that CD. And this time I went at it with a more surgical approach. And just because I had written music didn't mean I needed it to be in the CD. So songs that maybe I didn't think were quite as strong back then, I put them in anyway. But that's not happened this time. I've been able to take a step back. I make it a little bit more of like a true musical. So there are parts that maybe they aren't a whole song, but maybe somebody just sings 4 or 5 lines over a piano piece. And that was really important to me. Rewriting it entirely, I was able to strip out some of the more problematic language and focus on making it cohesive and make sense, ultimately. So now it's a fully realized story. Now, instead of calling it an audio drama, though, we are calling it a musical audiobook, and that's only because we are doing all of the voices ourselves as opposed to going outside the house. And that's not so much because I don't want to include other people. It's just that this particular project requires so much direction and so much work that it would be very, very costly because I want to pay people what they're worth. And if I have to try and get them to not only perform the spoken parts in a specific way, and in some cases, a specific tempo to match the music, so they might not be singing, but they are speaking over a part that has to fit within, say, 15 seconds, and it might mean that they gotta speak at a rapid pace. I'd have to direct them in that way, and then there's the singing part, and then there is the quality of their production equipment. Do they have anything that will make it sound as good as what I've got? How much work am I gonna have to do to clean up their audio and all that good stuff? So ultimately, we decided to go at it from just the perspective of 2 different people, using as many different crazy voices as we can come up with, and treat it like I would do an audiobook if I was reading someone's novel and they wanted to have their characters differentiated with, say, accents or tonality or any of that stuff. And we have done that with this. So it's all there, and we're moving along pretty fast. In fact, we have finished recording all of the spoken parts of the drama, and now we need to move into doing the music. A couple of the songs are already done and haven't really been changed too much from the original. The big thing is that what happens is we'll have like the verse of a song play, and then it'll break down and 2 people will have a conversation, and then we'll go back into the song. That happens quite frequently, actually. There's only a few songs that have remained perfectly intact from the original production, and they still have had their lyrics changed in order to adhere to the new story value of the Poisoned Rose. It's really interesting and quite different for me to work this way because I've never actually created in such a way that I'm building the music after the fact and they are songs. I've done audio dramas where there's going to be composition, music, but not necessarily like this. So it's been very challenging and fun, but at the same time, it does become a little bit more time consuming. So right now, right before I decided to make this video, I was working on a segment where the character has gone out into the woods and the place has this familiarity and they sing a couple of lines. It's literally 2 stanzas of singing and then it finishes and they go right back into the dialogue. And I didn't want them to necessarily sing over absolutely nothing. So it's a very simple piano piece, just some chords to give it a little bit of structure, and then they sing their part and then move on. And then later we revisit that same melody with a different character. So in this one, a character sings, in the next one, someone sings, and then we're back into the story. As far as the structure is concerned, I think that I did a fairly decent balance of music versus just straight dialogue. So I hope that that works out. I found some awesome workflows. I use Logic on the Mac for recording music, and I'm using Audition to order everything up. So, you know, two different dialogue pieces are recorded separately, and then I turn them into a conversation through Audition. And the automation in Audition has proven to be a lot more intuitive and easy to work with than on Logic, which is actually kind of funny because I would say that Logic, being more of a DAW for music and stuff, would have had a more robust version. And technically, I guess it does. It's just more user-friendly on Audition, to be perfectly honest. So I have finished the first scene of the drama, and then I started working on the second one, and then I ran up against the first part where someone sings without an actual song. So I had to take a break, come out, write that part to make sure it worked. Because I had the melody in my head for the vocals, but I didn't necessarily have the piano part yet. So I sat down and wrote that, got it done. Now Erica can do her singing part for it, and then we can get back into the dialogue. I can get to the next part of singing, and then I can figure out what I need to do there. I'm not entirely sure that's the best workflow yet. I've got a lot of work left to do because I'm still not even a quarter of the way through Act 1. 3 acts, of course. So I'm not sure what it's going to look like by the end. But I do intend to share the workflow here and explain how best you might do an audio drama like this specifically. Now, doing a regular audio drama, much easier and far different than this, because with an audio drama, it is pretty much just an audiobook with sound effects and music, whereas this is full-on songs that need to be taken into account. And when you're mastering a song, it's going to be a certain volume, and then of course if you're going to have speaking come over that isn't normally there, it isn't vocals, then you're going to have to do some automation to bring those things down in an organic way so that the fades work out properly, and then you'll have the dialogue stand out, because it needs to be kind of upfront. You don't want people to be like, what did he just say? So that's where I'm having to learn a little bit more about that balance. And hopefully, by the time I get into Act 2, I'll have a pretty swift process down that I'll be able to revisit and share again. I'm not entirely sure that I'll ever do another audio book musical again. This might be a special thing. I guess it really depends on how much people love it and if they think it's cool. For us, it was telling this story the way it was meant to be told, and that was with music. It's not just a book. It really does rely on the music from that time. And we loved a lot of those songs, so it's really fun to revisit them. I've made them a little different here and there. So one in particular, I really went crazy with some of the heavier instruments that I have and gave it a lot more grind to it and made it a little darker. Another song is really stripped down because there's so much talking throughout it to make it more of a story. And it's been a lot of fun to see that come about. So I look forward to sharing that one, and I'm hoping that I will have it done in the next month or two. It may even be less time than that. It really just depends on what it takes to get those vocal parts done, because the singing part will take a little bit of time to make sure we get it right, to rehearse and all that good stuff. You know, we rehearsed the screenplay of this several times before we set out to record our different parts. But the singing parts themselves weren't all written yet, so we didn't really have the opportunity to rehearse those as we went with the spoken parts. So anyway, that is the new audiobook musical that I'm working on right now. And then I also have another project that I'm working on that I'm very excited about, and that is a collaborative role-playing game. I'm going to go into a lot more depth about that in the coming weeks, but I have just done an amazing playtest. The guy that we sat down with and threw out our first attempt was just so receptive, and he dove right in. He got the concept immediately. And when we do that, we're going to sit down and properly mic it up and do a couple of scenes, discuss what it means and all this stuff. But I've really felt like this game that I've built has a place in the world, especially for people who aren't as big on systems, who don't want to have to learn a 75-page combat system, who are really more interested in something else. I think this game is really going to appeal to them. So we'll talk more about that next time. I just wanted to bring up the musical, give a little preview of what's coming, and tease something really neat. And other than that, I think that's just about all I've got to say today. So if you've got any thoughts or comments, leave them down below, and I'll talk to you next time. This is Robert from Society Case Files, signing off.